Welcome to this new video. As promised, this project was a bit different to all the modern era fighter jets I usually build. After building the Sukhoi Su-27 and the Eurofighter Typhoon, I finally wanted to test all the products that I've bought over the past few years. Therefore I got myself this kit of a ZSU-23 Shilka anti-aircraft gun. It's from ZVEZDA and comes in 1/100, so it's very small. The Shilka is a Soviet anti-aircraft gun with 4 23mm cannons. It was also called the sewing machine, I think because of the distinct sound it makes when it fires its 4 cannons, which have a great rate of fire, as you can see in this footage from the simulation DCS World. Although the ZVEZDA model is so small, the details are pretty good. You don't need any glue, the parts can simply be snapped together. The radar, cannon and turret are therefore still movable after assembly. The assembly was very simple, only when assembling this part between the cannons I would recommend to get a helping hand. As you can see, you can move the 4 23mm cannons synchronously. I continued with the chassis, where there were no problems either. Now all that was missing were the tracks, which consist of a single part on each side. This makes assembly easy, but makes it difficult to place the Shilka in rough terrain. I will come to that later. All in all, the assembly was very easy, the fit is very good and the surfaces are really detailed for such a small scale. I continued by airbrushing the whole model in grey. Then I used modeling clay to mask off certain areas that I sprayed in olive green. Surprisingly, it worked pretty well, so I went on this way. I masked other areas and painted them in a dark olive tone. After that I painted all the small details like tools and ropes mounted on the Shilka, as well as the cannons and headlights. After that I used a mix of Italer's black and dark brown washes to accentuate the panels and hatches. Next I prepared this 12 by 12 cm wooden frame. That's a bit small, but it was enough room to create a nice base for the Shilka. I filled the frame with styrofoam plates and glued a few leftovers on it to simulate small elevations in the terrain. When that was done, I removed some material to prepare for a river course. I heard that isolation foam is a better choice for diorama creation, but this was just what I had. Next I took Vallejo's earth texture and spread it on the styrofoam. It looks a little disgusting, but can be spread very well and adheres to most surfaces. I did not wait for the material to dry, but used this grass dispenser bottle from Noch that I filled with 2 types of static grass. Shaking the bottle is supposed to generate a static charge that lets the grass stand upright once you blow it through the opening. So I shot the grass directly onto the fresh earth texture and covered the areas where I wanted to create the river and mud later. This grass applicator worked relatively good, but obviously an electric static grass applicator is the way to go if you build many dioramas. The only problem is that these cost at least about 20 times as much as this bottle. While the earth texture was still fresh, I spread small stones across the riverbed. Up next I used white glue to fix some bushes to the terrain. I used several different types to get a natural look and also used some tiny yellow fabric parts to simulate flowers. Also I wanted to place these trees, but toned them down a bit with a wash because I thought the colors were too unnatural. The coat of earth texture wasn't too thick, so I was able to punch a hole into it and fix the trees. The next step was to make this diorama dirty, so I used Ammo of Mix Heavy Mud and mixed it with the remaining grass that was all over the place. As you can see, I began with the tracks and covered them with this mixture. Then I brushed the mud onto the areas that I hadn't previously covered with grass. When everything was dry, the next product came into play. Vallejo's still water levels itself, dries transparently and should look like realistic water. During my first experiments with it, I realized that it's really important to work only in very thin layers. So that the Shilka doesn't hang in the air like that, I filled this space in the river with more stones. As you can see, I also colored the first 2 or 3 layers of still water with a bit of brown and green. Still water is really easy to use, you just have to be patient. I left each layer overnight and let it level itself. I also tried to add some mud to the water, but that did not work out very good, probably because still water is acrylic, whereas amorph mix mud is enamel. After everything had dried for a few days, I noticed these white discolorations. I think it could be leftovers from the white glue or that it somehow reacted with the still water. But I wanted to spread a little foliage in the river anyway. So I added another layer of still water and placed some artificial bushes and tree barbs near the crossing between the shores and floating in the river. I also tried to recreate mud splashes with pieces of dry still water, plastic pieces and cotton, but none of that looked realistic enough to convince me. Still, I think this diorama came together quite nicely and I'm really looking forward to build more landscapes. The water could be better, but as I said, I wasn't able to recreate splashes and also I did not find a way to recreate waves and turbulence in the water. I will try this again someday, but for now I'm quite satisfied with the result anyways. During the many waiting times I was also able to complete another kit, this F-117 Nighthawk. Now, however, it's time for another larger project. I still haven't decided what's next. What do you think? I'm thinking about a Tornado, a Super Hornet or the F-22 Raptor, but I'm really not sure. If you want to stay up to date on my next projects, subscribe to my channel and follow me on Facebook under Starfish Scale Modeling. That's it for this video. As always, it would be great if you leave me some feedback. Check out the links in the description and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.